February 16th, 2017 meeting to order. I guess we should start with introductions. Can we start over there with you, Andy?
Andy Dillon, Lieutenant Danville, SWAT.
Jim Conradi, AC Transit.
Leah Greenblatt with Tech.
James Himkamp, City of Lafayette, SWAT.
Ahmed Abwali, City of Antioch.
Steve Kersavan from beautiful Brentwood.
Eric Key, City of Pleasant Hill, Transpac.
And I'm Jerry Fay with Contra Costa County.
I'm Charlie Anderson with WestCat.
Tom Horaeus, Tri-Delta Transit.
Lynn Filson, Transplan.
Ann Musini, County Connection.
Andy Smith, City of Walnut Creek, Transpac.
Heather Ballinger, City of Walnut Creek, City County Engineers.
Kevin Rohani, City of Oakley, Transplant.
Stephanie Mack, MTC.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to item C, approval of summary actions. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve. Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to the consent calendar. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve. Come on, people. Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to item number 5, project monitoring. Stephanie?
Good morning, committee members. Item number 5 is the monthly monitoring reports for STIP, OBAG, and inactive projects. And you'll notice that this month will continue to do so in the future. We've included a monitoring report for ATP projects since our county has received various fundings for different projects through ATP, so we thought it would be a good idea to start monitoring them. And as they are also following the same delivery guidelines and allocation process as STIP, it would be good to keep track of them and make sure we are on track with those projects. And one other change for the report is we've broken out a couple of projects into FY 17-18 for the OBAG projects on page 5-6. These two projects in Danville and Martinez are ones that have requested move from an earlier obligation plan to FY 17-18. So those are the two major changes to the reports, in addition to the updates for the milestones. But that's all I have. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Any questions or comments? Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 6, regional measure 3. Hisham?
There is a handout going for this item. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and committee members. My name is Hisham Raimi. I'm the engineering manager here. Last month, Martin and I met with MTC staff to talk about Regional Measure 3, and we learned from the meeting that in the next couple months, MTC will be seeking legislative approval to put RM3 on the ballot in 2018. And given the urgency and how quickly it's moving, we wanted to get our board approval on a candidate project list. So our MTC representatives have it when they start discussions about this topic. And our board approved the list that you have in your packet with a few changes which are shown in the handout in front of you. I'll go over the changes in a minute. So just as background, Regional Measure 3 would increase the bridge tolls between $1 and $3 on the 7 state-owned bridges. That does not include the Golden Gate Bridge. If it passes, about $127 million per year would be generated for each dollar raised. And based on a 25-year bond, which MTC plans to do if the measure passes, you're talking about $1.7 billion for each dollar. So if it was $3, it's going to be about $5 billion total. And that assumes no money is being spent on operations. If some of the money goes to operations, of course, the amount available to capital project will be reduced, and you cannot, normally you will not be able to bond against operation funding. So a workshop was held in December with MTC commissioners to discuss the principles and the policies that they would consider when developing the project list to include in RM3. And they're shown in attachment B in your packet. They include bridge nexus. Projects have to have nexus to the bridges, whether the project is enhancing regional prosperity, sustainability, state of good repair, demand management, freight, and resiliency. So to come up with a list, we basically thought we should start with something that the board already looked at and approved. So we looked at the RTP project list that we worked with you and the RTPCs over the last 2 years as part of the process. And we started with that list. We tried to do a high-level assessment of the projects compared to the criteria that MTC set. And the attachment C in your packet, as well as the handout, reflect the amount, the cost of the project as we put in the RTP, the amount of funding available programmed at this point and how much is needed. And then we added up all the funding needed, and that's roughly about $1.9 billion. Just to give you a perspective, according to MTC Fast Track data, 18% of the toll payers that use Fast Track have their billing address in Contra Costa, so you can assume about the same amount of percentage live in Contra Costa. I know the percentage on the Bay Bridge is higher than that, but overall, when you look at all the bridges, that's how much. That's the percentage of residents in Contra Costa. If you look at RM2, which was approved by the voters in 2004, the program total was about $1.5 billion, and we got about $300 million of that, so about 20%. So our $1.94 billion ask is roughly 38% of what MTC would generate if it raised the tolls by $3. I can tell you we're probably not going to get it, but we need to ask high, so hopefully we can get something we can live with and start some of these projects. So the changes in this list compared to what you had in your packet were related to project number 7, the West Contra Costa High Capacity Transit. After talking to WICTAC staff after the mail out, they mentioned that they're actually considering doing more than one alternative and not necessarily the cheapest alternative. So we increased the cost to reflect that. So the cost went from 179 to 424 million. And then Project 13 was added, the BART fleet expansion. Initial discussion with MTC made me think that MTC was going to take money off the top for that. So I didn't list it, but following just after the mail out, I learned that other CMAs are putting money for that on their list, and we probably should do the same because this is a high priority for us. This would expand the number of cars BART has. It's not a replacement of their existing fleet that's already funded. This will increase the fleet by about an additional 300 cars. And if you recall from Measure X discussions, we did have $300 million for that purpose, contingent upon certain things, but that was really a priority to the board. So the board approved these changes, and at the meeting yesterday, they also added Project 14, where they wanted to look into ways to reduce the congestion at the Richmond San Rafael toll plaza in the westbound direction, especially in the morning. So we put $50 million as a set aside for doing something, and the project has not yet been defined, just as a placeholder at this time. So the list in front of you, I mean, I'm not going to go through the list, but I think they are high priority in all the subregions. We covered all the subregions with this list. They all have bridge nexus, and they all meet the criteria in one way or another. Not all of the criteria, but at least 2 or 3 of the criteria. I'll be happy to answer any question. This is for your information. I would like to get your input after our meeting. MTC asked me to tell them when do we expect these projects to get under construction. And I made the last column on this table wasn't shared with the board because I just did that, and that's my best estimate of when these projects could go to construction, assuming they get fully funded. And a lot of them, the ones we're managing, I can tell, but the ones that in your jurisdiction, you may want to look at them, like the Brentwood Intermodal Transit Center. Steve, if you think the date I put is not reasonable, this is the time to let me know. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Can you put your microphone on so we can all hear it?
What's the bridge nexus for the 2 Highway 4 projects?
So Highway 4 leads to the Antioch Bridge, as well as, it takes a lot of people who use it go all the way to the city as well. So it has nexus to the Bay Bridge. It's within the corridor, basically, the bridge corridor. And in RM2, we did get money for Highway 4 widening, the EBART project. These were listed in RM2. So there is a precedent of considering that project as part of the bridge corridor.
Steve?
Unlike Measure X, this just needs a simple majority to pass?
Correct, 50.
Do you know what was the final number on X percentage? 60?
63.5%. We were short about 3.1%.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Oh, Andy?
So if this goes through, Hisham, hypothetically, we wouldn't expect to see an ask for future money for BART cars on any future measure for Contra Costa. Correct?
That's the idea. If this gets funded out of RM3, this would free up, if we go again, which I think we will, to the voters with our measure, we would have another $300 million to put on other stuff. In our measure, when we asked for funding for specific projects, we didn't ask for the amount that would fully fund those projects. For example, 684 interchange, we only put $60 million on that project in Measure X. That would not have fully funded that project. So having that flexibility will be great. So just one more item I forgot to add. MTC is thinking to put this ballot on the measure this measure on the ballot in June 2018, even though they have not made final decision. One of the reasons they can do that is one of the reasons they want to do that is not to compete with other measures that could be on the ballot in November 2018.
Can you talk, Hisham, a little bit about how the decision will be made about whether any of this money goes to operations or not? Because certainly the transit operators would like to see some money for operations.
I wish if I can tell you, I think that's going to be made at the board level at MTC. I'm not sure if they'll be able to look at polling to see if that's going to pass or not, or some other factors. So I don't know how they're going to do it, quite honestly.
But none of the CMAs are putting it in their wish list, as far as you know?
No, I think, one of the line items is ferry operations on our list. So, and I know, the West County high-capacity transit and the I-680 forward have operations components in them for express buses, right? I think so. I know for I-680 forward it does. Okay. I stand to be corrected. Thank you.
Heather?
Hisham, can you just, so I assume all the CMAs are putting in lists that are bigger than the pot of money. And then, so what will be the next steps? Will MTC put together, something more definitive that would go to the voters, that would narrow this down or put it in categories, or just if you could run through a little bit of what the next steps would be?
So I know Alameda, their ask is like $3.3 billion. And I know Marion took something to their board, but I'm not sure how much they're asking for. One thing different in this RM3 than others is that they are basically allowing projects to be identified in Napa, Sonoma, and Marin, I think, which wasn't the case prior to that. So there will be even more competition for this money. And I don't know how MTC is going to make the final list. I know polling is going to be a factor. I'm sure about that. And they want to put something that will pass with the voters. But, they need legislative approval. And the legislation actually could be the one who drafts the expenditure plan for this, as opposed to MTC. So that has not been decided yet. But if they get tasked with if they get tasked to develop the expenditure plan, we want to be prepared with our own list so they can at least choose from it. So there is still a lot to be decided yet, and I wish if I can tell you how the process is going to work, because it hasn't been, unless somebody else can tell me, it hasn't been defined yet very well.
Yvette?
It's to improve congestion on the Richmond San. It's the Richmond San Rafael Bridge westbound direction in the morning near the toll plaza.
Then my question is just the I-80 integrated corridor mobility project and a future phase. Did you consider adding that as a project?
I did not, because that wasn't in the. I went by what was in the Plan Bay Area 2040, the draft project list, and that wasn't specifically called out.
Is there a need, or would you want to add it?
For phase 2, I don't know. Not on I-80. I don't think there is any planned work on I-80, but maybe 580 in Richmond. That could be a future phase. But that didn't come through the RTPCs as a high priority project when we did our RTP project submittals.
Any other questions or comments?
So if you have comments on the dates, please let me know. If you're one of the sponsors, let me know today, because I need to send this today to MTC. Otherwise, I'm going to assume these are as good of a dates as anything else.
So I guess there's no opportunity to make comments on the
list.
The development of the project list?
Well, the project list was approved by our board yesterday. So this is for your information. We want to keep you in the loop. Given the urgency, we couldn't just take it through the normal process coming through you and the RTPCs. We thought looking through the RTPC list was something, the RTP list, which you all had opportunity to review, would be something satisfactory to the process.
Okay. All right. And any other comments? And we're adjourned.
Thank you.
What's the nexus? You're reading this thing that says it has to have a nexus to the bridge. Who's going to draw the nexus for the Vasco Byron Highway connector? Is that the Antioch Bridge?
Well, that's what I was. That's what.
One hell of a nexus.
We have an entrance there probably right now. This is probably already using for our driveway. And if you can see on here, this was the Alta Civic. This is our existing building. No, they're there. But that is a second phase that the council is maybe about to approve. So that's our GOC. There's plans to move there. And that, because they obviously have to move for the hotel. So what used to be here was a yard, and then there's still instead first cars there now. So the first two phases to move the impact yard and to do some other operations is already being approved by council. And then the next phase, phase 2 or 3, whichever you want to call it, is to move this.
So this is not done deal, right? They're not, it's not like preliminary.
It's not, this probably won't be worked out. Well, of course, not entitlement and everything like that, but they're in negotiations. We are negotiating. And so, it's definitely, there's a lot of those.
Well, yeah, you're kind of hidden in between these two streets, but Marriott's like right here, right? So
Marriott's right over here.
I mean, obviously there's some there's demand for it.
Right, and then of course,
right.
Right here.
Yes.
Yeah, so it just gives you an example, but just, I just cut off there. And then this is all, this was showing hundreds. So it gives you a good what the budget is.
Yeah.
It's up for sale.
Well, I think the 680 DA, whatever that, the alternative study wouldn't have liked that. I don't know when this. Well, when I came back to tell Susan, she was like, "Oh, really? She knew what they told me."
I don't know.
And it's weird because I thought I was on.
I get it, and I thought some of the stuff, and I get mixed up with which one it is, because you guys are all, you're looking at improvements
Right.
to 680. There was also some improvements on what to do here with this, because this backs up, and this on-ramp backs up. And one of the things that when Ross met with us, Steve and I, a while ago, and I'm sorry I cut this off, but the courtyard is here, and there's talk about like a flyover or things that could come, a direct off-ramp that could come over, and so that you're not merging this on-ramp and off-ramp for trees here, because trees are here. And, Steve's like, oh, if you're going to take a sliver of this piece of the courtyard, then we're going to have to talk about this piece of trees.
Right, and you're keeping that.
We're keeping it. So, but, if, buy us a new corporate. I mean, I'm kind of kidding.
Yes.
There's also billions of dollars in these things. So
Yes.
So they were always talking in here because of the, the skew and then the scales are up.
Yeah, the waste. Yes.
So I haven't heard them talk about impacts to this. So that's
Okay. But yeah, no, I think this is good information for them. Yeah. It's just when I came back from that season meeting, I was telling Susan, like, they're really not helping.
Yeah, and tell them to call me.
Yeah, I will. And or Steve or you guys. Yeah,
Right,
of
either
course.
way. Yeah.
Great, thank you, Heather. Yeah, I'm sure Steve's been just busy.
Oh yeah.
Well, at first
I forgot.
Yeah.
I sent it to you. I think I CC'd him
Yes,
on it.
yeah.
It says
Easily missed.
I was leaving for vacation, and so I was like, you get this one. And
No problem. Thank you.
it was like, it's say hi.
Hello, Mr. Kursavan. No, but
You were not happy?
no, but I'm happy though. So yeah, no, we were talking about in the office about the POC and the Sand Creek ramp. I guess Francis talked to you, right? Francis Lowe?
Did you miss the whole meeting?
There's some savings about.
Oh, you were over here?
Oh. Maybe should go to POC or should we go to?
Could you? I was like the
TBD.
shortest meeting ever,
I know.
and we have the biggest turnout ever.
I've been to a shorter one.
Yes.
Oh yeah,
so
there was
he
one. I
gave
think
us
it was
a
like
speech
15.
about
Yeah.
No,
your-
Crispin
your
ran
project.
the record shortest meeting was like 13
the
minutes or
money.
something.
Yeah, in Christmas of like December 2015.
I think that record's gonna
My
stand.
BART ride over here
Oh
was
yeah,
longer
and especially
than that.
Oh yeah, probably twice as long.
Yeah.
Don't forget,
Went to the
there's-
Transit Center and just
How are we gonna do with all that free time?
yeah. They have to do it.
Oh yeah, I know. I always wonder, like
Thanks,
you were in
Steve.
Lafayette yesterday afternoon. I'm like, I wonder if she goes home in between.
My schedule is to go to a cafe in Lafayette and just hang out at So once a month, I'm like hanging out in Lafayette.
I need to ask you something before you leave, but
And I have to ask her something before she leaves.
oh,
You're picking them up?
What?
You're picking the kids up?
Yeah.
Kim Bohan. I don't remember her first name. I know it starts with a K. And I was like, about this, I'm typing on
Oh,
about bus stops. For when BART goes out of service, bus bridges. So I want to know all of BART's ceremony a little bit. Contact me or have not contacted.
Well,
Brad has a lot of great stuff. Yeah, we're doing bus bridges, so they know which stops, which BART stations are connected by.
County has more projects that tailor towards those type of thing anyway.
All I know is it starts with a K, and I'm like typing up an email. I'm like, hi.
See if the autofills.
Yeah.
No, but El Cerrito, you can drive around El Cerrito, you can tell that high density, and you get a lot.
Because they're very dense, so they have more. Richmond is like
Yeah, it's great.
Dylan, do you know anything?
No, I'm Dylan.
Dylan, Caltrans planning. She's our BART. Okay. He's like our same thing.
All right, bye. I'm gonna pick them up, right?
Same here.
Yeah.
Trying to jump into the deep end, but
I get it.
yes, I would like to talk to you about that because we are like so far behind with what's going
I just
and I have to
small
connect it
question.
with Leah too.
This is like, that's why we have meetings. So
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, that's why you cut it short. So there's
allow time for mingling.
And that's why the coffee's here too. Yeah, exactly.
No, just really quick. So I emailed you, and normally at the university, comments that says there's a cap on 20% cost staff. So usually that's not a problem for construction because you're not physically like you hire contractors to do the work, but for the design resolution for the POC.
I agree with them that something needs to be done.
You guys are trying to not you don't design it.
That's why the dates are kind of like we're kind of doing some design work internally right now, which is why I can say we've already started the design. But we're not necessarily charging. We're not going to charge that to metric day. So it's not really included, or like But anyway, but yes.
Is that a problem?
No, just because like that's why I don't know what date to give you. So, but yes, we are going to contract
Okay,
the
then it's fine.
designer.
Okay.
So maybe those are the dates. I give you the date of that.
Oh no, that's
Starting the date of
yeah,
that
you can,
contract work.
but
yeah,
I can leave that out. It was more just that I can give more information about the project. Like I would like to say the designer expected to start at April, May, whatever. But I can leave that out. It's not a problem.
But I'll pass on the information. Do not charge more than 20% BART labor to this to measure it for this, and I don't think that'll be a problem.
No, I mean, especially you're contracting your design. At first I thought, well, it's possible that they're doing some design in-house, all or some.
So that's good for us to know. Yeah, it's good to think about.
And usually I do check it. Like for construction, it's very hard to see. If you build all construction, your CM firm, your construction contract, so I do track it, but it's never near 20%. But for this,
I'm just coming to introduce the two of you.
for resolution, I want to make sure you're not.
Yeah, he wants to get
A lot of
involved in the
counties are doing
impact
something to do
study.
Yes.
Since one of the bar alternatives would be on.
Okay, great. So I think I've got everything from you.
So I think
Pretty
Oh my God.
underway, but there's still.
But I think if
we hadn't heard about it
that
until I spoke with Matt.
that would be great, just because you have like 4 or 5 projects. Definitely good to have.
When game
In
moves.
case there are
Oh.
questions, like specific questions. I'm hoping not.
And I'm slowly moving
I
everything
knew no
through
one
like
was there.
the SWAT and trans TAC and
Yeah, so I think there are just 2 that you need concurrence.
yeah.
The bike and the lot bike.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'll just tell you now that I know for that
maybe you can come to
board
the
meeting,
track
the March
meeting.
15th one, I will not personally be at the meeting because I'll be in DC, but there will be a bar
I knew I'd
representative.
seen
Hopefully this will
you.
always be on consent.
Yeah, even
But
I think APC.
I'll go to the APC for sure. And then we'll send
Yeah, I
something
think
else.
normally they go to APC and their questions and the rest of them. Yeah, it'd be nice to have some of their reports.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah. Those are our residents. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's what I'm thinking is part of that bike lane, since that's a later phase, maybe we could get something. You don't think there's going to be thousands of people on that bridge? On the weekends, I can see some spandex clad people out over the bridge. But I think you're right. We need to do something for transit, and maybe the project could be for transit. Because AC Transit had that service across the bridge. Oh, was it? Well, they have the existing service. They had the one from Emeryville and Oakland. And no one rode it because they were just sitting in traffic.
And our modeling shows that there's, when we did our travel marketing analysis, it shows that there's but we dropped it for further evaluation.
Maybe that 50 million can cover a ferry route. We'll be lucky if we get.
cuts it at 30